Hey there. You're listening to the quiet between the noise, a space where your mind can rest and the weight of the day gently fades away. Here, there's no rush, no pressure, just soft whispers, gentle pauses, and a place for you to simply breathe. So go ahead, get cozy. Let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts drift like slow-moving clouds. You've done enough, and you deserve to rest. Take a deep breath in and slowly breathe out. This is your time now to unwind, to let go, and to gently drift into sleep. Tonight's story is just about to begin. Patient Zero. If there's one thing that keeps me from sleeping at night, it's not the sight of bodies torn apart in the emergency room. It's not the animal-like screams echoing from the hospital basement. And it's not even the way my colleague, Dr. Lena, slashed her own face with a metal clamp before crashing headfirst through the glass door. What haunts me is the silence before it all began. Boston in December. Bitter cold. I had been on assignment at the Gentech Biological Research Center for exactly 3 days. Oddly enough, from the very first day I felt this place was hiding something. The lab corridors were long and sealed off like the hull of a ship. The doors were completely soundproof. No one greeted each other. No one talked. Only exchanged glances. Everyone was strung tight like a wire, but no one would say why. On the evening of the 3rd day, I was summoned to room C3, according to the map, a high-level quarantine zone. But instead of a patient, there was only an empty stretcher, a few drops of blood on the floor, and a dismantled security camera. I asked the shift supervisor, "Where is the patient?" He only said, "It's not a person anymore." At the same time, news began to spread outside the city. A new virus, codenamed XN531, was causing bizarre symptoms. First fever, then seizures, followed by neurological breakdown, and finally a state of extreme violence. The authorities called it a neural variant. I didn't buy it. Under the microscope, I saw something moving with intent. It wasn't spreading randomly. It was targeting people with specific genetic markers, as if it were choosing. I sent a sample to the Central Analysis Lab, but less than 12 hours later, all the data vanished from the system. And I was placed on an internal watch list. Then, at exactly 2:43 a.m., I received a message. "I know you're investigating. I was the one who brought Patient Zero here. We need to talk before everything falls apart." Chapter 1, the 2:43 message. The message lit up on my screen and jolted me awake, my heart pounding as if someone had just clenched it with an iron grip. "I know you're investigating. I'm the one who brought Patient Zero in. We need to talk before everything falls apart. No name, no phone number, just a string of strange symbols sent through an internal app, accessible only to Gentech employees." I sat frozen in the dark, the sound of blood pulsing in my ears. Someone inside Gentech knew I was tracking the XN531 virus, and they also knew this didn't stop at the hospital. Then another message came in with GPS coordinates and a brief line. 30 minutes. Come alone. Tell no one. The meeting point was located on basement level 4, a floor I had never been authorized to enter. According to my employee ID, that area was locked behind level A clearance, access reserved strictly for upper management. I hesitated for a few seconds, then threw on my coat, slid my phone into my pocket, and left my room. In the empty hallway, the fluorescent lights flickered rhythmically. The facility's intercom system played a steady, sleep-inducing announcement. Gentech is committed to safeguarding public health and safety. Please remain calm and adhere to all procedures. The automated female voice repeated it over and over, drained of all emotion. I slipped into the tech room where there was an auxiliary control station and a spare employee ID card in a locked drawer. It belonged to Dr. Miller, who hadn't shown up in the lab since yesterday. No one asked about him. No one reported him missing. The elevator descended slowly to the sub-level. Under my feet, the pale green tiles reflected the overhead lights, like skin gone cold. The air grew colder with every second, carrying a metallic tinge mixed with a faint scent of burning, as if part of this place had once been scorched, then scrubbed down with harsh chemicals. The doors opened. I stepped out. The basement was pitch black. Only a faint light flickered from a glass room at the end of the corridor. I moved toward it. Inside was a man in a white coat, sitting alone with his back to me. On the table lay a torn folder and a glass jar containing something floating, almost glowing. I tapped gently on the glass. The man turned his head. His eyes were sunken, his cheeks hollow. There was something in his gaze that filled me with dread, not because he looked dangerous, but because he looked like someone who had seen something no one else was meant to see. "Are you Dr. Elisa Tran?" he asked. I nodded. He gestured to the chair across from him. "We don't have much time. Things are about to spiral out of control, and I need to tell you the truth about this virus. What they're calling XN531. He paused, then said slowly, "It's not a virus, it's a signal." Chapter 2, The Signal. I sat down on the metal chair, trying to remain calm, though my hands were still trembling slightly. The man across from me looked like he hadn't slept in days. His lips were dry and cracked, and his white lab coat was stained with dried blood. "My name is Marcus Hale, head of the Biological Data Analysis Department at Gentech, or at least I used to hold that position," he said, his gaze fixed on the glass jar on the table. Inside it was a viscous gray liquid with a small mass slowly floating and rotating. It looked like a piece of brain tissue that had been compressed, but there were thin fibers extending from it, twitching lightly every time the light hit. "What is that?" I asked, my breath catching in my throat. "The central molecule of XN531, he replied. "We call it the trigger." "Trigger what?" Marcus stared at me for a long time before answering. "A transmission signal, and its target is the human brain." I thought he was paranoid or perhaps losing control due to stress. But he wasn't shaking, nor was he disoriented. The way he spoke, it was too coherent to be a hallucination. "We didn't create XN531, he said. "It's not a product of the laboratory. It's not a biological accident." "Then where did it come from?" He looked at me for a long time, as if questioning whether I was ready to hear the truth. Then he pulled a scan from his bag, an image from an electron microscope, a double helix structure, not like DNA, but more like a code. There was something encoded in this virus, not genes, but a message. We found it in a piece of meteorite that fell in Siberia 3 years ago. The rock disintegrated quickly in Earth's atmosphere, but what was living inside didn't die. It just went into a dormant state. My heart began to race. This wasn't a traditional infectious virus. "And then," he said slowly, "we did the most foolish thing humanity has ever done. We decoded it." Marcus stood up and walked to a steel cabinet behind him, pulling out a tablet. He gently swiped it and opened a video. In the video, a man, presumably a researcher, sat in a chair connected to EEG electrodes. As the data stream began, the man started convulsing. His eyes widened, his mouth screamed soundlessly. Then he smiled, a smile that no longer belonged to a human. The video ended with screams and signal interference. "XN531 doesn't kill people," Marcus said. "It changes them. It overwrites the brain, like reinstalling software. We're not sure if it carries knowledge or if it's simply reflexive. But once activated, the patients become extremely dangerous, not just because of their behavior, but because they transmit waves." I was speechless. "You mean this virus transmits through frequencies?" He nodded. "An infected person can send waves to another. No contact necessary, just proximity." I stood up abruptly. "We need to notify the CDC, the government, if it transmits through brain waves." Marcus raised his hand to stop me. "Do you think that's why I met you here, in the basement? We're being watched, and if you alert them, they'll come. and they'll deal with you, like they dealt with Dr. Miller yesterday morning. I took a step back. Who are they? Marcus looked at me, his gaze heavy. People who believe this isn't the end of humanity. It's evolution. Chapter 3, Goodbye, Gen Tech. I rushed down the hallway, my heart pounding as if it were about to burst. Every step echoed on the cold tile floor, my heavy breathing tearing through the silent air of the basement. With each step, each breath, I felt an overwhelming sense of fear. I wasn't just running from Gen Tech, I was running from a truth that I couldn't accept, but I couldn't stay still. If Marcus was right, this outbreak wasn't just a biological accident anymore. It was an invasion, something not from Earth. I had heard enough from Marcus. The XN531 virus wasn't about destruction. It was a gateway to something greater. Everything around me was temporary, and what they called a virus was really just the door to new life. Marcus' gaze still haunted my mind. Evolution. Those words kept echoing in my head, sending a chill down my spine. Leaving the basement, I quickly moved toward the elevator. But as I approached, I saw a figure standing in the shadows. A tall figure, face obscured, but I knew immediately. They were waiting for me. A cold, sharp glance from the stolen security card. I cautiously stepped back, trying to remain calm, but the hurried footsteps behind me turned me around. Dr. Tran, a deep voice rang out, as if it had anticipated all my actions. We need to discuss something. I couldn't stand still. Suddenly, a strong arm grabbed me, pulling me into a small, dimly lit room. Another figure appeared, their eyes as cold as mirrors. Who are they? The question echoed in my mind. They were definitely not from Gen Tech. No one at the center could act so coldly. One of them smirked. You think we haven't been watching you? You're not the only one who knows about XN531. I clenched my fists, my eyes darting between the two strangers, staring intently at me. Who are you really? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The man in front stepped forward, almost with no movement. We are the ones who discovered this virus before Gen Tech even started researching it. We're the ones who brought the XN531 virus here. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then who are you? Why did you do this? Why let this thing spread? They were silent for a long moment before the man spoke again, his voice no longer as cold. Because we can't stop evolution. Humans are always trying to transcend themselves, surpass the limits of the body. And XN531 is the key to unlocking that door. We can't stop whether we want to or not. My legs felt like they were going to give way, but I managed to keep my balance. Part of me wanted to turn and run, but the other part couldn't. I couldn't let this end just because of fear. I had to know the truth. What do you want to do? I asked, suppressing my voice so it wouldn't betray my confusion. The other man chuckled lightly. We're not doing anything. We just need to let it be free. We just need to step into a new age. Everything around me suddenly spun. If these people really had control over XN531, there was nothing I could do to stop it. But I couldn't accept that truth. This city, and even the world, was standing in front of a door, with no way back. I knew what I had to do. If I didn't act now, not just Gen Tech, but everything would be pushed into a future no one could control. I took a step back, preparing for a battle without mercy. Do you think I'll just stand still? I will stop you, no matter what. As I turned to leave, the man simply said quietly, Don't think you can stop it. XN531 has begun, and now only one person can stop it. You. Chapter 4, A Race Against Time. After leaving the secret room, I had no choice but to follow this risky path. The city outside was descending into chaos. Strange events had begun to happen everywhere, from mysterious deaths to bizarre changes in human behavior. But what scared me the most wasn't what I had seen, but what I didn't know. XN531 was not just a virus. It was a brainwave, a signal emanating from deep within the mind, making people lose themselves and replace their identity with another form of existence. an existence I could not explain. I left the Gentech area with no clear direction. It was just me and the darkness. A rickety taxi had picked me up outside the hospital, but I couldn't risk staying any longer in the city. I had to leave. A place far away. A place where no one could watch me. I could only hope I still had enough time to uncover the truth and stop what was happening. Before dawn could break, I arrived in a suburban area, far from the noise of the city. Along the road, the windows of houses were dark. No one was outside. No one was talking. The air had turned strangely cold. I had once thought I would find safety out there. But now I realized there was no safe place left. The virus had spread faster than I thought. When I reached a deserted area, I parked my car by the roadside, stepped out, and looked around. The ground was dry and cracked. My breath seemed heavier. The buildings along the road became dark and gloomy, like lifeless shadows. Then I heard a noise. Footsteps echoed from behind, and when I turned around, I saw men in protective suits walking toward me. Their masks were sealed tight. Not a strand of hair was visible. They held guns, and one of them signaled for me to stop. "Please, I'm just a research staff," I said, trying to stay calm. "I have nothing to do with what's happening." But in response, I heard a cold laugh from the leader. "You can't escape us. XN531 has started. You're the key to stopping it." As they got closer, I realized the truth I didn't want to believe. They weren't ordinary military or medical personnel. They were part of a secret organization, people who were trying to exploit the power of XN531. They wanted to evolve, and they believed that Elisa Tran was the only one who could control or stop the spread of this virus. One of the men stepped forward and spoke. "If you don't cooperate, we won't hesitate to make things more difficult. What you need to do now is help us unlock your potential." Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, and one of the men in the group fell to the ground. Blood spurted from the wound, but I couldn't stop. "Run!" That was the only thing I could do. I turned and ran into the woods. My steps hurried, but the fear never left. Everything went into chaos. I couldn't believe that now everything I had done, all the decisions I had made, had led me here. I was being chased, not just by the secret organization, but by the very virus I was trying to stop. The forest grew denser, and the space around me sank into darkness. My body was tense, muscles straining as if they might tear apart. The hurried footsteps kept chasing me from behind. In that moment, I saw the headlights of a car speeding along the road ahead. I took a deep breath and ran toward it. That was my only chance. Chapter 5, The Hidden Truth. Run. That's all I can do right now. The world around me seems to be collapsing, and I don't know if I'll survive in this world. But I have no other choice. If I stop, I'll be caught. And if I don't run, the XN531 virus will continue to spread, not just here, but globally. I stopped for a moment, leaning against the trunk of a large tree, catching my breath. I've run a long way, my body exhausted, but I can't stop. Under the dense canopy, there's no one around, just the strange sounds of nature. A cold breeze blows through, making me shiver. The weak light of dawn gradually filters through the gaps in the leaves, and I see a small house in the distance. It's a place where I can take refuge, at least until I come up with another plan. Inside, the house is empty, dusty, and smells of mold. No one has lived here for a long time. I sit down on an old chair, take some water and bread out of my backpack. I certainly can't continue without anything in hand, but safety is a distant concept now. They're looking for me, the secret operatives from Gentech, the hunters who move like ghosts, impossible to avoid. But one thing I know is that I can't live in fear. I must find out the truth. I have to figure out how to stop this virus before it completely destroys everything. After eating quickly, I find an old computer in the corner of the room. It looks like it hasn't been used in a while, but I can't ignore any clues. Skimming through some files, I find a series of encrypted video clips, possibly part of Gentech's research. I have to access them. My heart pounds as the screen begins to display the first images. They are experiments, human body tests, and a series of studies about the XN531 virus. The horrifying images of people who no longer resemble humans. They've been completely changed, no longer conscious, only bodies that have evolved beyond human limits. In another video, I see a woman, apparently a Gentech researcher. She is tied to a chair and needles are inserted into her body. A voice echoes in the video. We will test the cell regeneration ability of XN531. The next step, we will activate the full process. At that moment, the bodies around the woman start changing. Their eyes turn red, their muscles bulge, and something strange emerges from their bodies, as if they are absorbing some kind of invisible energy. I can't believe what I'm seeing. This virus doesn't just change the human body. It also has the ability to control the brain, turning people into something else. Suddenly, a loud noise from outside the window startles me. I quickly shut off the computer and run to the door. I need to leave immediately. As I step outside, I see a truck parked by the roadside. People in protective suits get out, holding weapons. I'm all too familiar with their cold, emotionless faces. They've come for me again. I turn and run toward the forest. But this time, I don't run blindly. I have to face the truth, and I know the price will be high. As I run, I recall what I saw in the video. A body no longer human and the changes that can't be stopped. This virus is not the product of science. It's part of a larger plan. I can't stop. I have to find Marcus. I have to find a way to stop this destruction. If not just this city, but the entire world will fall into chaos. Running deeper into the forest, I encounter signs of life. A small village, but it has been abandoned for a long time. The last house looks like the perfect place to hide. I step inside, but as soon as I pass through the door, I feel a coldness invade my body. Inside the house, there are signs of human presence. A small laboratory filled with scientific equipment, and on the table there's a black box containing important documents I need. Chapter 7, Pain and Hope. The pain suddenly overwhelmed my body. Blood flowed from the wound on my back, making me feel dizzy and weak. My vision began to blur and everything around me seemed to spin. I couldn't breathe. That suffocating feeling made me feel like I was about to die. But I couldn't die. I couldn't let them win. I tried to stand up, but my legs were unsteady. A strong push from behind made me stumble forward. I fell to the ground, and that was when I heard a voice. "Are you okay?" I couldn't believe my ears. This was the voice of someone else, someone who had never appeared in this story. I tried to turn around, but my vision was fading. The blurry image of a man appeared before me. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice weak. "Don't worry, I'll help you," the man said, pulling me up and guiding me to a truck parked nearby. "You're badly hurt. I know a safe place," he continued, trying to keep me conscious. I didn't know who he was. Why was he helping me? I couldn't think anymore because the pain was too intense. The only thing I knew for sure was that without him, I would die here. As the truck moved through empty streets, I tried to catch my breath. Gentech was definitely tracking me. They not only wanted the documents I had found, but they also wanted to destroy everyone who knew about the XN531 virus. With every passing second, I felt myself getting closer to death, but this man was saving me. The only question I could think of was, why was he helping me? Finally, the truck stopped. The man helped me into a simple house nestled among the hills. There were no signs of life around here, and that was exactly what I needed. A safe place. He helped me inside, laid me on an old bed, and began to tend to my wounds. I watched him as he worked, trying to understand more about this person. He was in his early 30s with brown hair and a serious face. However, his eyes held a deep concern. "You need to rest. I'll take care of everything," he said. I nodded weakly, but inside my mind was filled with questions. When I woke up, he was gone. But on the table next to the bed, there was a note with hurriedly written words. "You need to know this. We are not the enemy. The XN531 virus is not Gentek's creation. It was created from something much more dangerous. We are trying to stop it. These words left me stunned. Not Gentek? They had said that XN531 was their product, part of their research. So who was behind this destruction? And who was trying to stop it? As I sat up, trying to process this new information, the man returned. He was carrying a box with research equipment and some documents. "You're awake," he said, giving a faint smile, though the worry in his eyes was still evident. "I'm Marcus, and I know what you're looking for." Chapter 8, The Mysterious Web. I sat on the old wooden chair, my eyes still fixed on Marcus. He was the only one left, apart from the hunters after me. But could I trust him? "Marcus," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "You said you're not the enemy, but why are you helping me? Why should I believe what you're saying?" Marcus was silent for a moment, his eyes growing thoughtful. He seemed to be searching for the right words to respond. "You're not the only one being watched, Elisa," he replied. "You're not the only one who knows about the XN531 virus. We've been tracking Gentek for years. What they're doing is not for the benefit of humanity." I could hear the tension in his voice, and I knew he was speaking the truth. But that only made me feel more uneasy. If it wasn't Gentek, then who was behind this? And why had this truth been hidden for so long? "So, who are we up against?" I asked, trying to make sense of the situation. "This is what I want you to understand," Marcus continued, pulling out a folder that had been carefully hidden. "We're an independent research group, not affiliated with Gentek. Our goal is to stop the development of XN531 and prevent it from becoming a biological weapon. But there's one thing you need to understand. This virus isn't just a product of science. It's connected to something else, something Gentek has no idea about, but they've figured out how to exploit it." I felt like I was being swept away by a storm. I had just begun to understand the virus, but now I was faced with an even more complicated reality. The thing Marcus was talking about. Something that wasn't a virus? "What is it?" I asked again, my voice barely a whisper. "What we're facing is a living entity, a form of organism that can't be controlled. It's hidden within the XN531 virus, and Gentek accidentally discovered it. But they don't understand its true nature." Marcus paused for a moment, then continued. "When XN531 is injected into the body, it doesn't just activate the cells. It infiltrates the mind, the memories, and the emotions. It doesn't just alter the body, it changes the very soul of a person." I sat still, unable to speak. Marcus's words filled me with fear, but also made me feel like there was something deeply wrong with this experiment. The XN531 virus wasn't just a virus. It was something else, something Gentek had no awareness of. "So what do we do now?" I asked, my voice growing weaker. Marcus looked at me with determination. "We've discovered a Gentek facility where they're testing a new strain of XN531. If we don't stop this experiment, everything will fall apart. Not just humanity, but the whole of mankind." He grabbed my hand, the resolve in his eyes giving me a strange sense of strength. "We need to get there, Elisa. We have to stop them." A thick silence hung in the air for a moment. I looked at the documents on the table, my hands shaking as I touched the numbers and complex encrypted characters. I had been pulled into an invisible war, where not only my life but humanity itself was at risk. The weight of guilt and responsibility pressed down on me, but I couldn't turn back. I had already gone too deep into this. Everything had changed. I wasn't just a girl running anymore. I was part of something much larger. "What do we do next?" I asked, grabbing Marcus's hand once more. He smiled. "We're going to defeat Gentek." Chapter 9, The Chase. The dim light of the morning crept through the window cracks, waking me up. Although I had slept a bit, my mind could not stop swirling with the new information Marcus had revealed. Why was Gentek researching this virus, and who created it? These questions were like monstrous creatures endlessly tormenting my mind. Marcus entered the room with an old map and a backpack. "Are you ready?" he asked, his expression serious. I looked at the map. It depicted a restricted area where Gentek's base was hidden deep in the forest. This was where the most dangerous experiments were being carried out, experiments that could destroy humanity if not stopped in time. I nodded. "Ready? We'll walk through the forest. The path is not easy, and if we're discovered, we won't have a chance to escape," Marcus said. "But if everything goes according to plan, we'll reach the base undetected." We began our journey into the forest, where darkness still clung to the air. Despite the faint morning light, the thick trees made the space feel suffocating. Every step had to be careful. We couldn't leave any trace. We had to move quickly and stealthily. I felt an overwhelming tension. Every sound from falling branches, every breeze felt like someone was watching us. Gentek had surely sent people to monitor this area. "We need to get closer to the base before we can approach it," Marcus whispered. "Stay calm. Don't let emotions take over." I nodded, but my anxiety was hard to hide. I used to think I could escape, but now I realized there was nowhere safe. There was no place I could run where I wouldn't face this terrifying truth. We continued moving for a few more hours. The sounds grew stranger. I heard footsteps, but couldn't tell from where. I glanced behind me and saw shadows of a few people moving swiftly through the forest, as if they were searching for something. We'd been spotted. "Run!" Marcus ordered, and we began running frantically without thinking. My body was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't stop. The footsteps were getting closer. I could feel the presence of those behind us. They were not far. The shadows in the forest began to move at a terrifying speed. Gentek had found us. We dashed deeper into the forest, looking for any nook to hide, but they were still on our trail, not giving up. I could hear gunshots coming from behind us. A bullet whizzed past me, knocking me to the ground. Luckily, it didn't hit me, but my body was completely drained. "Marcus," I gasped, trying to get up. "We can't keep running." Marcus turned around, his eyes gleaming with fierce determination. "You have to keep going, Elisa. I'll hold them off," he said, looking at me one last time before drawing a gun from his side, ready to face our pursuers. I couldn't do anything but watch him run ahead, shielding me. The soldiers were getting closer, but Marcus didn't hesitate. He looked back at me one last time and then charged into the fight. I sat there, my heart pounding, terrified that I would lose the only person who could help me. But I couldn't just sit here. I couldn't leave him alone. With the last of my strength, I got up and ran toward Marcus, trying to remain unnoticed. I heard gunshots, screams, and then a scream from Marcus echoed from the front. A bullet had hit him. I panicked, rushing toward his cry. When I saw him, Marcus had fallen to the ground, blood flowing from the wound on his chest. His eyes were fading, but still looking at me, as though he wanted to say something. "Marcus, no!" I screamed, rushing to him and trying to shake him awake. But he didn't respond. Chapter 10, The Collapse. Everything around me became blurry. Marcus's eyes slowly closed, and my hand trembled as it touched the bloodstain on his chest. Each drop of blood seemed to pierce deep into my heart, reminding me that he had sacrificed himself just to help me survive. I couldn't let that sacrifice go to waste. But now I was alone. There was no one left by my side to rely on. It was just me, and the only goal, to stop Gentek. Struggling to control my emotions, I pulled Marcus's backpack from his hand and picked up the important documents. I couldn't stop. Gentek had to pay, and I would do whatever it took to make that happen. I stepped deeper into the forest where Gentek's base was waiting. The shadows still moved silently, but now I wasn't afraid like before. I had to reach the base quickly before those hunting me found me. The tense moments made each step more exhausting, but I couldn't stop. Marcus had sacrificed himself. Now it was time for me to get revenge. I followed the map Marcus had left, trying to adjust my direction. I sensed the presence of those chasing me, and I knew that just one small mistake would expose me. The forest grew denser. Every sound seemed amplified in my mind. The rustling of leaves could be footsteps of the enemy, and I couldn't be sure whether they were tracking me or not. "Don't panic," I told myself as I kept moving. "They won't find me if I don't leave any trace." Suddenly, I stopped. A strange sound came from afar, the snap of a branch, then a gunshot. But it wasn't from anyone hunting me. It was the sound of a firefight. I cautiously moved toward the sound of gunfire. I couldn't miss any opportunity. As I got closer, I saw a group of Gentek soldiers fighting with a group of strangers. These people weren't in military uniforms, but their weapons were very modern. Were they part of the independent research group? I didn't have time to think. I had to act now. A loud explosion rang out. The sky darkened instantly as the light from a flare bomb illuminated everything. The entire forest seemed to blaze with light, and I couldn't shut my eyes. In the blink of an eye, I realized the group of strangers had been attacked. Gentek soldiers were advancing, and I couldn't let them see me. "No, not now," I whispered. "I have to wait. Just a little longer." But there was no more time. One of the Gentek soldiers turned around and saw me. His eyes locked on me with a challenge, then he raised his gun. I felt like a hunted animal, but I couldn't back down. I had to fight. As the soldier pulled the trigger, I dove into the darkness. The bullet zipped past my face, but I managed to hide behind a large tree. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't afford to lose my composure. The entire forest had descended into chaos. Gunshots, screams, everything had turned into an endless battle. I had to use every survival skill I had learned over the years. But this time, there was no one to rely on. Straining to stay calm, I surveyed my surroundings. A strategy to escape Gentek's encirclement was necessary right now. If I didn't act, I wouldn't be able to get close to the base. I decided to create a distraction. Grabbing a large stone from the ground, I threw it forcefully toward a nearby bush. The noise echoed, causing the soldiers to turn their heads. Just in time. Immediately, I slipped into the shadows, moving through the bushes and staying out of sight. I dared not breathe loudly, moving as fast as I could. Finally, I escaped the battle zone. The gunfire and explosions gradually faded, and I knew I was safe, at least for now. Chapter 11, The Terrifying Truth. I felt like a madwoman as I ventured deeper into this dark forest, alone. Everything around me was vague and threatening. The sounds only made me more anxious, but I had no choice but to continue. Marcus's sacrifice still haunted me. The image of him falling, his last words, they continued to circle in my mind. I couldn't let his sacrifice be in vain. What made things even more confusing was the map Marcus had left behind. It led to a very specific location within the Gentek area, a place I never thought I'd have to go. It was a secret research area where some of the most dangerous experiments were conducted. Why were they researching this virus? I had asked myself that question countless times, and now I was about to find the answer.
To bastare unit. Gracias per all time English is
After a while, I stopped. Before me stood a massive steel gate, sealed tight and heavily guarded. Gentek's base. There were no guards standing at the gate, but I knew they were watching from afar. I couldn't infiltrate in the usual way. Gentek was too clever to leave any loopholes. I began to look for alternative ways in, following faint tracks on the ground. Just a little further and I would know what was hidden in this research facility. How dangerous were their experiments, really? After a while, I found a back entrance to the base, a small door that had been forgotten. Cautiously, I approached, trying not to make a sound. After inspecting it closely, I realized it was an emergency exit. I grabbed an old metal bar and gently opened the door. It creaked but didn't make enough noise to be noticed. I stepped inside. Inside was a long, dark corridor with flickering lights. The glass doors ahead of me all had "Do not enter" signs, but I couldn't stop now. I had come too far to turn back. I had to uncover the truth. I ventured deeper and found a laboratory door. My heart raced, but I didn't stop. Inside was a cold, sterile space filled with modern scientific equipment and control panels. On the wall were photos of test subjects, people who had been injected with the XN531 virus. Looking at the photos, I couldn't believe my eyes. These people weren't just patients. They were altered individuals, the subjects of Gentek's experiments to control them and turn them into biological weapons. This virus wasn't just a disease. It was a tool to change the very nature of humanity. I felt torn apart as I realized that I was facing a fight, not just for survival, but to stop these unethical experiments. I continued moving through the lab rooms, and finally, I found a special report. Report 47, the Labyrinth Project. I flipped through the first few pages, and the more I read, the more bewildered I became. The Labyrinth Project was the code name for a research program that Gentek had conducted to develop perfect soldiers by combining the XN531 virus with the DNA of special individuals. The patients in these experiments had been altered both physically and intellectually, turning them into super soldiers. That was Gentek's goal, to create an invincible army. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. Someone was coming closer. I had to leave now. I quickly shoved the reports into my backpack and turned to head toward the emergency exit. But just as I was about to leave, I saw a figure standing at the end of the corridor, a woman in Gentek uniform. Our eyes met for a brief moment. I could feel the coldness and determination in her gaze. And then she started walking toward me, pulling a gun from her waistband. Chapter 12, The Final Assault. She moved towards me, walking slowly but with confidence. I could feel the danger emanating from her, as if she had predicted that I would be here. The narrow corridor left me with few options. The light from the ceiling bulbs illuminated her face, and I realized that despite the lack of any overt expression, her eyes were filled with calculation. I couldn't let myself be caught. "You must know who I am, right?" she said, her voice calm but full of self-assurance. "Elisa, is that right?" I didn't answer immediately. There was only one way out, and I had to act quickly. "Don't panic," she smirked smugly. "I don't want to kill you, but you can't leave here without paying the price." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't just a hunter, she was part of the very experiments I was trying to stop. But in that moment, I realized that this was the final challenge I had to face, and I couldn't back down. I took a deep breath, then suddenly plunged into the darkness. She couldn't see me immediately, and I quickly slipped into a nearby laboratory. My heart pounded in my chest, but I couldn't stop. When I turned back, I saw she was chasing after me. The soft click of her high heels on the floor urged me to hurry. She wasn't just an ordinary soldier. She was a product of the very experiments I was trying to halt. She had become a weapon, and now she was hunting me. I ran through the corridors, dodging through lab room doors, knowing I couldn't keep running forever. She was almost on top of me. I had to think of a plan, a way to fight back. When I reached a junction, I stopped. I couldn't let myself get caught in this trap. I turned around and grabbed a metal bar in my hand. This was the only choice I had to survive. She continued to approach, no doubt in her mind. Then I jumped out from my hiding spot, swinging the metal bar towards her. She reacted quickly, but I managed to create enough distance to avoid being captured. Both of us were panting, but neither of us was willing to back down. She was the creature created from Gentek's experiments, and I, Elisa, was Gentek's nightmare. She laughed coldly. "What do you think you can do? You have no idea who you're messing with." I didn't respond. Only silence. I just needed one more chance, and I would defeat her. Again, I gripped the metal bar tightly, ready for this fight. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from outside. The base was under attack. We both turned to look. In that moment, I saw a group of strangers rushing in through the main entrance. They weren't Gentek soldiers. They were the Resistance, those who had been trying to fight against Gentek. The Resistance had launched their assault. She glared at me with anger. "You can't save yourself." But I couldn't stop. This was my only chance. I ran toward the emergency exit, sprinting through the corridors as chaos erupted behind me with the battle between Gentek soldiers and the Resistance. Both sides were putting everything they had into this relentless fight. One of the Resistance members ran up to me and extended a hand. "Follow me. This is your last chance." I didn't hesitate. I nodded and followed them, leaving behind the bloody conflict. Finally, we reached a deeper area of the base, where there was an underground door leading outside. One of the Resistance members said, "This door will get you out and we'll continue fighting. You must stop Gentek." I looked into their eyes, knowing they were fighting for something greater than their own lives. They were fighting for freedom. And so was I. Chapter 13. The Final Choice. We left the Gentek compound through the underground door, running through the dark tunnels. Our steps were hurried, but everything inside me seemed to slow down. Every thought in my head was spinning. Could I stop Gentek? Did I have the strength to fight not only for myself, but for all the people who were in danger? The Resistance led me to a safe area, a temporary camp where they had organized attacks on the Gentek compound. The people here were survivors of the experiments, those affected by the virus, or simply those who couldn't stand by and watch the world fall apart. One man in the group, a middle-aged man, looked at me with concern in his eyes. "Elisa, we need you. We can't do this without you." I nodded, feeling the heavy responsibility weighing on my shoulders. I couldn't let them fail. I couldn't let Gentek continue destroying this world. In a small room, I looked at the maps and battle plans the Resistance had prepared. We were getting ready for an attack on Gentek's headquarters, where all the secrets about the XN531 virus and the horrific experiments were being carried out. But the deeper I looked, the more I uncovered an even darker truth. A report in the stack of documents showed another experiment being conducted at the Gentek Research Center. The XN531 virus didn't just create biological weapons. It could alter the genes of those infected, turning them into entirely new entities, creatures no longer belonging to humanity. I felt a chill. What Gentek was doing wasn't just about creating weapons. They were toying with the essence of humanity. And I knew that if I didn't stop them now, the world would never be the same again. Outside the camp, a heavy rain began to pour. The sound of the rain falling on the roof was like it wanted to wash everything away. The Resistance army was ready, but I knew we didn't have much time. Gentek was conducting new experiments, and if we didn't act immediately, there would be no chance left. We set out at night after everything was prepared. In the darkness, the Resistance and I quietly moved through the forests, trying to avoid detection by Gentek's soldiers. As we neared Gentek's headquarters, the anxiety inside me surged. Everything now wasn't just about stopping a criminal organization. It was about saving those who had been turned into monsters, saving the world from destruction. I looked into the eyes of the team. They were all fighters, people who hadn't given up even when hope seemed lost, and I knew I couldn't let them down. When we reached the gates of Gentek, a battle erupted. Gunshots rang out, explosions echoed, shaking the air. But I couldn't stand on the sidelines. I rushed in, fighting while searching for the crucial evidence that could destroy Gentek once and for all. After a fierce fight, I made my way to the main control room, where the crucial data on the XN531 virus was stored. The modern computer devices were glowing with an eerie blue light. I had to destroy them immediately. But as I was about to enter the room, I heard footsteps. Someone was approaching. At that moment, a man appeared in the doorway. Someone I never expected. The CEO of Gentek, the one who had been behind all the experiments. He looked at me, a cold smile spreading across his face. Elisa, I knew one day you would come, but I didn't expect you to arrive so soon. I stood frozen, my hand tightly gripping the gun. I will stop everything you've done. This brutality ends today, he smirked. You don't understand. Gentek isn't just an organization. It's the future, and you won't be able to stop us. The confrontation between me and the Gentek CEO was on the brink of life and death. Chapter 14, The Mask Revealed. The control room door slammed shut behind me, leaving me alone with the Gentek CEO, a man I never imagined I would meet under such circumstances. He looked at me with an indescribable sense of self-satisfaction, as if he had already won before the battle even started. Elisa, he said, his voice cold as ice. You came here to stop us? Do you think you can stop everything all by yourself? I didn't respond immediately. Everything had happened so fast, and I knew time was running out. I looked at the computer screens around me, knowing they held crucial information that I needed to destroy. But I couldn't let him get away, no matter what psychological games he wanted to play. I knew you'd come, he continued. You are part of our experiments. You can't deny that. I slowly walked toward the control desk, my hand still tightly gripping the gun. No, I replied, my voice breaking. I am not part of your experiments. I am the end of everything you've caused. He smirked. Is that what you think? You don't understand, Elisa. You are the perfect product. The XN531 virus doesn't just create monsters, it can create perfect humans. I've seen your potential. I felt the blood in my veins freeze. Yes, I was part of Gentek's experiments, but I was not the person he thought I was. I was not the product of their cruelty. What do you think you can do? I asked again, my voice now a warning. You can't even save yourself. Gentek will collapse. He smiled. You can kill me, but Gentek won't stop. No matter what you do, I'll live forever, and our experiments will continue. The CEO stood up, his gaze as sharp as a knife. Do you think you can change the world? You and the resistance, you will never win. Suddenly, in that moment, I realized something. He wasn't the only enemy. The experiments, the mutations caused by the XN531 virus, they were all the result of a society that had lost its humanity. The ones behind this, those who couldn't accept failure, they were the greatest threat. The anger inside me surged, and I decided not to stop here. I would end it all. I rushed toward the control desk, frantically pressing keys on the screen, accessing important files. This system will never function again. The Gentek CEO yelled and rushed towards me, but I had already destroyed the data files. A loud explosion echoed from the devices, and all the screens in the control room went black. I turned to face him, but now I felt stronger than ever. Not just fighting for survival, but for a new ideal. He looked at me, his eyes filled with hatred. You can't win. You'll never stop us. But I had my answer. I don't need to stop everything. I just need one chance to start over. Gunfire rang out in the room as I reached into my pocket and pulled out a homemade bomb. I will show Gentek that we can extinguish the fire you started. The CEO froze. You can't do this. This is a new world, Elisa. But his new world had no room for life, only for death. The entire room shook as I activated the bomb. The control room door shattered, and I rushed out while the explosion reverberated throughout the base.